Kirk Duckwell here with your Twin Cities Real Estate Agent news and forecast for August 2026. Well, we're seeing some quick cooling out there. So, what does this mean for our market and where is it going? We'll get into that in just 1 second. First, I want to mention a class we have coming up. This is how to create the Smart Seller, 2 hours of free CE for anybody that wants that. It's going to be August 25th from 10:30 to 12:30 and lunch provided afterwards, again at no cost. Basically, this class breaks down how to get your sellers ready for the process, make them more confident in the advice that you're giving them, and get them ready for what can be sometimes a stressful situation. Especially helps with getting them ready for the inspection and things to expect coming up there and how to digest that. So 2 hours of free CE and lunch provided at the end. Sign up for that. We'll have links in the email if you're getting it via that way or within the post. All right, let's dive into the data, take a look at what's going on in our marketplace here. Okay, so closed sales up 11.1%. That's great, right? But we see things really turning around as soon as we look at pending sales, only up 3.2%. The story changes even more as we start looking at some of the breakdown in why we're seeing that. So showings per week per listing average, 250 to 500K, is back up from the previous week, which is a good thing, but still tracking behind by 13% over last year. So 3.12 on that average in comparison to last year's 3.6 currently. We're also watching that showing rate tracking behind, and it has been for a while. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks running now. And some of the gains that we made when we were seeing showings tracking ahead, upwards of 18% at one point, we lost. And we've now been tracking behind. So we are now still down 4% over the same time last year on total showings. And that is going to affect that pending sales when we look at the forecasts of where things are going here in a second. Okay, so looking at the inventory, well, a lot of this is that inventory. We are tracking well ahead of our peaks of last year. So we can see last year peaking out around 10,897 total listings. Now we're at 11,550. This is great for buyers, but for sellers, more competition out there. At one point, we were over 10% ahead on inventory, and I would expect that now that we're seeing this slower showing rate and slower pending sales to come back to that. Right now, we're running at about 8% behind. Looking at the showings, and we'll break this down by price point again. We are tracking okay, but we've come off of our highs where we were well ahead. We're also watching that cancellation rate kind of start popping back up after the 4th of July high there, as well as that days on market. Now we've seen a little bit of a slide back, and that says the inventory has tightened that little bit back up again, kind of coming from a high 32.7 down to 29. But where does this put our market meter? Okay, market meter, 2.69. So that's in buyer's market territory overall. Now, this story isn't just told by the one. I want to show you overall as a whole. If we look at the market meter for single family, that's up to a 3.69, which is still buyer's market territory. It's not until you get into the 3 to 600,000 range where we see that the market meter is at a 4.45, which is stable market, but it is getting close to that buyer's market territory and likely will be there within just a couple of weeks. So opportunity for buyers is definitely out there. Okay, looking at the bond market, a lot of this is we've seen some more pressure on interest rates, watching the bond market going up, and usually the bond market reacts and then we watch the interest rates react. So we're tracking right now with interest rates here at 6.74. Well, if we go back to February, March, we were tracking closer to 6%. And this is when we saw showing activity really start to skyrocket out there. And there's nothing showing that we're going to see any major changes in interest rate anytime soon. So yes, affordability is coming down now with those cash buyers or investors. There does have opportunity that's lying there. Okay, before we jump onto the showing activity, I just wanted to point this piece out here, which is looking at the dynamics. If you have listings and you go into the MLS and look at hit counters, one of the things to look at is what is the percentage of people that are engaging. So client portals and then the clicks into those portals. We can look at the engagement percentage currently running at about 54%. So if you have a listing and let's say you have 500 client portal matches or client portals, you want to make sure the number right next to that is averaging it out at 54% or better to know that your listing is performing at or above average. As far as average views, now this can vary a lot, especially by property type, but that is coming in currently at 35 views for that 14-day period of time. Okay, let's take a look at showings as a whole again, kind of pulling back. We can see, yeah, here are those highs well above last year, and now we're performing slower, right? So with that inventory higher, lower showing activity, that competition just isn't there as much. So make sure you're having these conversations because that slide into the fall market is starting. We're in August here, a month that can be a little bit tougher, that you're getting those price changes done for those sellers if you've been having that struggle selling. Okay. Looking at the showings by price point, just wanted to point this out. I thought it was a little bit interesting, and I think really showing that affordability again here. We watch 200 or less all the way up to 500,000 this last week, all had up weeks in their showing activity. However, 500 all the way up to 1 million or higher had down weeks. And I really think as people are looking at those second home purchases, pushing that budget as interest rates go higher, that they're just not seeing that performance as strong. Whereas if we look at last year, the higher price points actually had a pretty decent August. Hopefully you found this information valuable. Again, check out that free CE class, How to Create the Smart Seller. Take care and have a great rest of your month.